How to start with fixing our content addiction? I think we need to have a kind of game plan, a set of rules or goals to see if we actually improved and to know where we started. So let's make one. My goal is to reduce my content consumption with progressive overload. Similar like in a gym, you start with 5 kg, the next day you up it to 5.5, then 6, and so on and so on. The same I will try to apply to my content consumption. For example, right now I have an average of 6 hours of screen time on my phone. My goal is to reduce the screen time step by step till I hit my first actually major goal of 2.5 hours of screen time. If I succeed with that, I would have 3.5 hours of newly free time that I can use to do productive things and establish new hobbies and habits that are beneficial in the long run. The first habit that I want to implement that is a huge ROI is fitness. I mean, we all know doing cardio, lifting some weights has benefits for our health. So I will try to do that and go consistently to the gym or running. Right now it's more like some days I go, some days I won't. Then there's week I'm disciplined, and then there's week I don't go. So my goal is to go consistently. If I dedicate 1 hour to fitness, I'm still left with 2.5 hours. 2 new habits that I already know I want to do are meditation and reading. I've read online and watched a bunch of videos that told me meditation is very good for helping with content consumption, so I will try it out. Also, I think reading could be very helpful to learning new stuff, so I will try to do that as well. I think at the beginning I will dedicate 5 minutes to meditation and half an hour to reading. Then I'm still left with around 2 hours for a new hobby or habit that I will try to learn. Now the next thing we need to consider is my dopamine is kind of fucked, and dopamine isn't released when we receive pleasure. Dopamine is actually released in the pursuit of pleasure, because back in the caveman days our ancestors released dopamine when they were hunting. They didn't release it when they catch their prey. They released dopamine when they didn't catch it, and only in the pursuit, in the hunt. This way they were still motivated if they didn't catch anything to eat. So that's why dopamine is still very important today, because watching YouTube or TikTok or gaming is similar to hunting a prey. We are in the hunt, or we are hunting a funny video, a funny post, a good game, or an epic scene. During that time, in the time of seeking that funny video, the dopamine is actually released. That's why TikTok is so bad for your dopamine, because you constantly are hunting a new video and video and video. So dopamine is released and released and released till you hit that funny video. And the worst part about this is, if we, for example, study, there is still dopamine that's released. It's just a small degree. Or for example, if we go outside and walk in nature, dopamine is still released. And if our dopamine base level is normal, going outside is very fun. However, if, for example, while going outside of nature, we listen to a podcast, our dopamine spikes, because it's more fun and engaging as just walking in nature. So there's a bigger spike. The problem is now our baseline increased. Now if we go back to walking in nature, we don't hit the baseline anymore, not because the dopamine release of walking in nature decreased, but because our baseline of dopamine increased. That's the reason why, if we want to work but watched some YouTube or were gaming beforehand, we can't do it, or we feel it's boring, tedious, because we've experienced so much pleasure that everything in comparison feels dull. So how do we fix or improve that? I'm not entirely sure. My approach would be I do the hardest task in the morning, for example, studying or working on something, before consuming any content that increases my dopamine to a fucked level. And maybe with that approach, studying or working becomes fun and not so boring. So lastly, I heard a cool concept from a YouTuber. It's called brain points. Like the same as action points in video games, you need to attack or do tasks. The same applies for real life. For example, you start in the morning with 200 brain points. Every task you do requires a certain amount of brain points. For example, looking at your phone, -5. Deciding what to wear, -10. Watching a YouTube video, -20. Watching or scrolling TikTok, -10 per minute, and so on. Now the thing is, the harder the task, the more brain points we need. So for example, if we start our day with 200 and we do all those small tasks, by the time we want to do our hardest task, we don't have enough brain points left. For example, the hardest task would require 120 brain points, but we are only left with 100. Then we can't do the task. I mean, we've all experienced the feeling of just being unable to do the task. We want to do the task, but we're just too down or something. We can't do it. And I think that's a reason why. This is why I will focus on the hardest task first thing in the morning. If you're wondering, what's the hardest task for me? Just think to yourself, what's a task you've been dreading to do? You know you should do, but you just pushed it off. You said you would do it tomorrow. And tomorrow you said, oh, in the afternoon. In the afternoon you said, oh, evening. And then you push it to the next day. Most likely it's like something like studying, working, cleaning, or training. So now I have a set of rules or goals. First, I want to do my hardest task in the morning, and the second hardest, so on. This way I will conserve my brain points and I will have like a momentum of success. And every other task feels easy in comparison. The next thing, I do my task before I use any content. What I mean by that is I will do a to-do list for every day, and on there's things I want to do, basic things, go training, study, journal, meditation, read, new habit or something. And before I use content, I will try to look at the to-do list, and if there's anything open that I still need to do, I will try to do that first. I hope it works. Then, to help me motivate to do my biggest task first, I will try to take a cold shower to boost my motivation a bit. Then the next goal or set of rules is I will do my most beneficial task instead of using my phone. What I mean by that is, instead of being on my phone, I will try to be social at dinner. Instead of being on my phone, I will clean. Instead of being on my phone, I will read. Just do something instead of watch useless content. And I hope in this way I will also reduce my screen time. The last thing I want to do is make a schedule. When to wake up, when to go to bed. This way I have a set of structure and routine, and both is very good for you. Also, if you wake up and go to bed at the same time every day, your sleep will improve and will fall asleep faster. Also, in my schedule, I will try to schedule in when to do what. I think in the beginning it will be quite basic. For example, when I have to go to work and personal time. This way I can manage my time better because I can see how much free time I actually have, and this way it will be more beneficial to establish a new habit because I know I have free time then, so I do my new habit there, and so on. So the most important part is I actually have to do that stuff. I can talk long about those stuff, but the thing is, I actually need to do the things. If you want to chat about me, about content addiction, reading, meditation, and so on, you can add my Discord username. It's the first thing in the description, and we can chat with each other. On that note, have a great day, sleep well, and I see you in the next one. Goodbye.